The UN estimates that 3% of the world's population are international migrants. The White Paper on International Migration celebrates this and envisions that in this highly connected world, South Africa needs a robust, progressive vision of the benefits of well-managed international migration. The Scalabrini Centre concurs with this and has developed its programs in line with this vision. Properly managed, migration can contribute to our national development priorities.
The Employment Access Programme provides a gateway to employment for South Africans, migrants and refugees with the right to work in South Africa. We aim to improve integration in the workplace and to harness the potential of migration for inclusive economic growth. We do this through a frontline help desk, trainings and job placement programs. In the current context of our 29% unemployment rate, this service is key to our national development.
More and more women are migrating throughout Africa. The Women's Platform is open to South Africans, migrants, asylum seekers and refugees. Our platform creates a multinational network for women to access and share resources, financial sustainability and personal skills. We also assist with healthcare access and awareness, as well as sexual and gender-based violence support groups.
The English School uses a curriculum designed for those recently arrived in South Africa. It ensures that migrants and refugees know their rights and their responsibilities too. Through conversation classes, we encourage socioeconomic and proactive integration into South African society.
We need to have more courageous conversations around integration, identity, racism and cultural diversity. We aim to focus our programs around these conversations.
The Unite program works with 6 high schools across Cape Town.
We promote critical thinking and activism in youth. The program trains 48 peer leaders who work with around 300 learners.
Through workshops, events, outings and camps to explore topics around identity, leadership and diversity.
The advocacy program operates a paralegal advice and referral service. We assist people in ensuring that their documentation is valid and they've got access to proper documentation. We have an in-house social worker team. They assist particularly unaccompanied and separated children. We use information on general trends and barriers that people experience to inform research papers and wider work, documentary filmmaking, making submissions to Parliament, doing training.
The welfare program assists with material needs only after an assessment, and we strike an agreement with them, such as attending English school or employment access program. We also run a men's development group and a women's program.
Lawrence House is a child and youth care center registered with the Department of Social Development, which provides a home for around 24 youth. Here, expert services are provided for refugee and migrant youth who are declared in need of care and protection.
It is of vital importance that all persons in South Africa are documented. Increasingly restrictive asylum system, migration laws and policies are having a counter effect and are forcing people to be undocumented. This poses a big risk to individuals and the state. In this video, we wish to speak to 3 issues and 3 proposed solutions: the struggling asylum system, Angolan cessation, and documentation of foreign children. In our daily work and in our research, as well as our submissions, we advocate for safe documentation. Proper documentation will assist better informed service delivery planning. Migrants struggle to document themselves in South Africa. The Immigration Act requires specific documentation. Many migrants cannot fulfill these requirements. the closure of refugee reception offices, and barriers within asylum system mean many asylum seekers simply cannot document themselves. We work with thousands of migrants and refugees every year, and the major need expressed by these individuals is that they do not want to be undocumented. They want to be documented.
There's wide consensus that South Africa's asylum system is struggling. The numbers of asylum applications in South Africa are very small compared to numbers that we see in other asylum seeker receiving countries, for example, Uganda and Kenya. In our system, we see many asylum seekers spending a long time in the system. It should be 180 days, but this is not the reality. Some of the difficulties or barriers that we see in the system are difficulties in terms of resources, numbers, capacity, and corruption, and these all contribute to essentially the long waiting period that asylum seekers experience in South Africa's asylum system. An efficient and correctly functioning asylum system would not only protect those who are in need of protection, but it would also ensure that those who should not be in the system are provided with swift refusals. An overhaul of the asylum system, as envisaged in the white paper, is not the solution and would not be required if the system were implemented and functioning properly. The closure of urban refugee reception offices, as well as the seriously delayed implementation of court orders, further exacerbates the problem and causes issues not only for Home Affairs, but also for asylum seekers themselves. We are also seeing a trend in the issuing of what we would call appointment slips. This means that new asylum seekers aren't able to access a refugee reception office when they first go to that office. Instead, they're issued with an appointment. We have seen clients who are getting appointments for 2021. That person goes undocumented for that time. Once an asylum application is lodged, they then have to be interviewed by a refugee status determination officer. The RSDO would have to issue them with an RSDO decision, which either confirms that they are a refugee or rejects them and provides reasons for that rejection. Rejected asylum applications can be categorized as unfounded, in which case they can be appealed to the Refugee Appeal Board, or manifestly unfounded, in which case they are automatically reviewed by the Standing Committee for Refugee Affairs. There have been numerous studies showing the poor quality of decisions at RSDO level. What this does is it pushes people into a paper queue in the review or appeal process. For example, Home Affairs statistics for 2017 show that a reported number of 27,980 asylum applications were lodged. In the same year, 25,713 RSDO rejections were issued. As of 2018, the Refugee Appeal Board backlog sits at 147,794 cases. So you can see there's a bottleneck that takes place there. We believe that it can be fixed through 5 relatively simple and cost-effective measures. The first is to implement the court order and reopen fully functional urban refugee reception offices. The second would be to improve the capacity and quality of those offices. Quality of RSDO decisions at first instance needs to improve. The third is to work on the backlogs at both the Standing Committee for Refugee Affairs and RAB level. We firmly believe that one of the ways that this issue could be assisted with is by looking at options for group decisions. For example, for people coming from the Eastern DRC or Somalia. The fourth is to find ways to reduce the amount of time that is used in terms of staff hours at refugee reception offices. For example, At the moment, many staff hours are taken up renewing asylum seeker permits monthly. We suggest issuing asylum seeker permits for at least 6 months, but preferably 12 months. The fifth solution is to implement something that is set out quite strongly in the white paper. That's a complementary visa regime.
In 2013, the Department of Home Affairs announced its first and only cessation. Angolan former refugees have been in South Africa for over 20 years. Angolan refugees had their refugee status ended because Angola was considered a peaceful and safe country. The majority of these refugees were given Angolan passport and a 2-year temporary residence permit. This permit expired in 2015. The Department of Home Affairs did not extend these permits. Only after a lengthy and expensive legal case did Home Affairs offer the former Angolan refugees a 4-year permit. This permit, called Angolan Special Permit, expires in 2021. This community is fearful that in 2021 they'll be forced back to a country that they do not even know. Spouses and children of the ASP holders have no documentation options in South Africa, and this is not their fault. The Angolan Cessation Committee has been established, and they've been asking for a meeting with the Minister of Home Affairs since January 2019 to address some of these issues. In terms of solutions, we are talking about a small group of people, just under 2,000. They desperately do not want to return to Angola. And considering their socio-economic contribution to South Africa, we recommend the Portfolio Committee to communicate with the Minister of Home Affairs to allow permanent residence to be granted to this group of individuals. We do not know how many non-South African children are presently in South Africa. Strict rules regarding documentation of these children force some of these children to be undocumented, which is unsafe for the child and for the state as well. There are different categories of non-South African children, and each have great trouble obtaining documentation. Firstly, children born to non-South African parents in South Africa. The Department of Home Affairs is obliged to issue a birth certificate to every child born in South Africa. This allows the government to track and plan for all those born within the South African borders. The regulations to the Birth and Death Registration Act in South Africa requires that foreign parents who give birth in South Africa need to have a valid visa or permit for them to be able to register the birth of their child. This regulation therefore inhibits the rights of a foreign child. As a solution to ensure a safe and fair system, the regulations must ensure all children born in South Africa are issued a birth certificate. Whilst the provision of an identity document for a parent is desirable, a valid visa or permit should not be required. The second category is that of children fleeing to South Africa on their own due to war and conflict. Scalabrini Center conducted a research on these children, and we found that many children struggle to access the asylum system. As a solution, we suggest a better functioning asylum system as well as the reopening of the closed refugee offices in order to document these children. The third category is that of children migrating to South Africa for economic reasons or other reasons. Children who do not qualify to apply for asylum can only be documented through the Immigration Act. In terms of the immigration laws of South Africa, all visas have to be applied for in countries of origin. However, this is a big challenge for children who find themselves in South Africa because it would not be possible for them to apply for any type of visa. The other issue is that there is no visa option for unaccompanied and separated children in South Africa. As a solution, we recommend the creation of a special permit for this category of children so that we do not remain with a large number of undocumented children within the South African borders.